Hello and welcome back for another Zubbie crafting video. Today we're making a 1/12 scale television with interchangeable screens, and you could switch from having it on a stand to a wall-mounted TV. Pretty neat, huh? This is the perfect TV for either a dollhouse or an action figure diorama. The materials you'll need for this project are paperboard, such as from a cereal box, 2 popsicle sticks, glue. I'll be using Mod Podge. I like it because it's stronger than the white glue we all used back in school. Scissors, ruler or a T-square, pencil, paper, black acrylic craft paint, sealant, and a paintbrush. And then there's some other optional materials I'll be using, but if you don't have these, you could substitute something else. Puffy paint, super glue, magnets, which I'll be using a cheap sheet magnet. You know, the kind that local businesses sometimes give out that have their logo and maybe a calendar on it. And some 5mm disc magnets. Pruning shears, X-Acto knife, packaging tape, mounting putty, needle, and sandpaper. The first step we need to take is start measuring and cutting stuff up. I started with a cereal box and I cut 6 rectangles that are 8.9 centimeters wide by 5.1 centimeters tall. If you don't have a sheet magnet, you want to cut an extra rectangle out of the cereal box so you'll have a total of 7 instead. 2 of these rectangles are going to become the front frame on the TV, and we'll cut a smaller rectangle from the interior of them so that the frame will be 2 millimeters thick on all sides. If you do have a sheet magnet, you want to cut it into another rectangle of 8.9 centimeters by 5.1 centimeters. Which is the same size as the cereal box pieces. You'll also need to trim your popsicle sticks down, but I think it's easiest if I just show you all my pieces and the measurements. The thing you'll need to watch out for is on one of the popsicle sticks that you'll be using as part of the base of the stand, you'll need to make a notch in it that is about as wide and as deep as your popsicle stick, so that way the piece that will become the arm of the stand can sit upright in that notch. The smallest popsicle piece will become the remote control. I sanded down the 2 bottom corners of the remote so that the bottom of the remote will be slightly rounded. Next, I glue the 4 back pieces of my TV together using the Mod Podge, and I glue the sheet magnet on the top. If you're not using a sheet magnet, glue your 5th piece of the paperboard to the others instead. You can always just paint this piece black to look like the TV screen instead of using the magnet. At this point, I'm going to start painting the remote control black, and I'm also going to paint the interior edge and the front of my frames black before I glue them down, because, well, I don't want to risk getting any paint on my magnet. Then I take my 2 popsicle sticks that will form the base of my stand and cut out a piece of paper that's slightly smaller than them. I'll glue the 2 pieces of the base to this paper to help keep them together. Then I take the 3rd piece of the stand, which will become the arm, and insert it into the notch I cut in the base and glue it down. Now, while that base is drying, we can go back to the TV and glue on the frame. Next, paint the TV stand black. After the frame has dried on the TV, I sand all 4 edges of the TV on some sandpaper to help level them out. Then you can begin painting the remaining sides and back of the TV black. If you didn't use a magnet, this is where you'll paint the screen black too. While the stand and TV are drying, let's move on to the remote control again, because it's time to add the buttons. I'm going to stick my remote control down to my paper with a bit of mounting putty to help keep it from sliding around. You can either use paint to make your buttons, or I'll be using puffy paint to give the buttons a bit of dimension. Now, you just can't apply the puffy paint directly to the remote though, because the remote is so small. Well, I guess you could if you wanted to make one of those old people remotes with the giant buttons. I unscrewed the blade from my X-Acto knife and I fastened in a needle in its place. Then I place a blob of the puffy paint on the paper and pick it up with the needle so that I have more control over the size of the buttons. Puffy paint. I don't get a chance to work with it very often, But every time I do, I'm reminded of these sweatshirts we made when I was a kid back in Girl Scouts. We each had a plain white sweatshirt, and we were supposed to write our troop name and troop number or, something like that with the Puffy paint. Well, the adults who were supposed to be supervising us got to talking, and I got done pretty quickly. Now, it's not a good idea to leave a 7-year-old bored and with unlimited access to Puffy paint. That sweatshirt soon filled up with random doodles of rainbows and unicorns that, honestly, they looked a little inbred because, well, Puffy paint isn't forgiving. You just can't erase it once it's down. Puffy paint is supposed to remain flexible when dry, but the truth is, if you get a whole bunch of it on a shirt, it becomes pretty uncomfortable. I only remember wearing that hideous creation of a shirt once. I'm assuming one day my mom probably took it out back and put it out of its misery. Ooh, I got off topic, didn't I? Well, I guess the lesson is, don't draw unicorns on your remote control. Just stick to the buttons. Once the TV and stand are dry, I protect the paint with a layer of sealant. I'm using a satin varnish. And then once that's dry, I measure the central points on the back of the TV and put 2 marks down about 1 centimeter from the bottom and 3.5 centimeters from the bottom. This is where I will be attaching my disc magnets. I measure similar points on the arm of the stand. Now, if you don't have magnets, you can always just glue the TV directly to the stand. I like the magnets though because they give me more options to switch freely between the stand and a wall mount. Now, as for sticking the TV on a wall, I just use more poster mounting putty. I use the super glue to secure the magnets in their places. After the super glue is dry, the TV is done, but I'm going to make some interchangeable screens that I can stick on the magnetic TV screen. I use a free software called paint.net to scale the images down so that they're about 8.4 centimeters wide and 4.7 centimeters tall. Then I just print them out, and to prevent the ink from smearing, I attach a layer of packaging tape on the front and back of the image and cut it out. I glue small squares of the sheet magnet to the 4 corners of the image using super glue. Just make sure you test your magnets first before you super glue them down. You want to make sure you're gluing the correct side down so that the image will stick to the TV screen. And once again, if you don't have magnets, you could always just use a small piece of tape to switch between screens. Now the TV is finished. But before you go, I have some photos to share from viewers like you who gave some of my previous projects a try. First up is Gyarados66, who made the posable venom tendrils. That looks great, but it looks like poor Spider-Man is having another rough day. Someone needs to make the spider sense effect so that Spidey can see these attacks coming. Oh, wait. Spider sense doesn't work against venom. Well, I tried. You're on your own, Spidey. Maybe Spider-Man needs to hang out around the fiery Jean. Jose Calero made this gorgeous Phoenix effect for Jean. Now, Venom wouldn't want to go anywhere near that. Or maybe Spidey could hire a bodyguard. I'm sure Thor doesn't have anything better to do. Well, okay, he probably does, but Matt's Toy Shop on Instagram sent me this image of Thor calling down some lightning. Very nice. If you want to try any of these projects, check out my playlist of crafting for action figures and other toys for the instructions. And if you've tried any of my projects, I'd love to see your photos too. Just give me a link to them down in the comments below, or send them to me on a social networking site. And that's it for today. We'll be making something new, probably next week, hopefully. Anyway, if you don't want to miss it, make sure you subscribe, and click that thumbs up button if you want to make the inbred looking unicorn happy. Thanks for watching.